Perfect.
Well, you're encouraged to speak. All right, so we're recording, so I guess we can kick it off. Right at the top of this, Spencer and I wanted to do little introductions for everybody. Obviously, there's a bunch of new faces.
You got one person
We
pulling
got
up.
one person pulling in. Maybe we'll wait till she gets comfortable. Don't be weird about it, people.
I'm gonna be weird about it. Everyone look at it.
Everybody. It's the worst nightmare when you're showing up like 1 minute late.
Yep. Well, you can't be a minute late. You
Yeah,
know?
it's gonna be a minute late.
What's that?
The president of our council, everybody. I think I see that.
Yep.
Start us off. Go ahead and
Sure.
introduce
Yeah.
us.
Okay. I think everybody knows me, but if you don't, I'm Spencer Cadden. I'm the township manager for Lawrence Park. You know, and yeah, I don't know, nothing much else to say. Well, I guess we'll go around this way.
Oh, I guess, well, it's true, but actually, oh, Bill, I never,
He
I
never
don't know if he did, I might have mistakenly thought he confirmed, but maybe he didn't. So you might be the alternate, so go ahead.
Welcome aboard.
Welcome aboard. Yeah, hello, everybody. My name is Marcus Jacobs, and I'm with the Wesleyville Borough. I'm the borough manager.
I'm Matt Alvardozi, representing citizens of Wesleyville.
Jen Sheldon, and I'm from Lawrence Park, and I'm on the school board there.
Hey, Rob Baker, Board of Fisheries, Lawrence Park.
John Rall from North Park Police.
Tom Bosanowski, Westville Police.
Dan Julius, counsel for Wesleyville, and today.
Paul Johnson, Mayor of Westville. Tom Bookleitner, Commissioner in Lawrence Park.
Rick Garman, citizen of Lawrence Park, alternate.
Crystal Whitener, citizen of Lawrence Park.
I'm Libra Chip Gabbard, citizen of Lawrence Park and teacher down at the elementary school.
Very cool.
Thanks for being a teacher.
Yes. Awesome. So yeah, as we see there, we ended up getting a steering committee together. You know, I think we have 5 and 5 of the actual membership, and then we have some alternates as well. So I'm glad that we've got this level of involvement for something like this. You want to kick us off?
Yeah, I mean, I think the important thing here, just to get started right off the bat, is to just acknowledge, you know, that this is sort of an equal body, but we're going to have differences and diversity in our perspectives. You know, everybody's going to come to this as we would any joint effort with different opinions, different ideas. And, you know, I think we need to remember that that is a strength, not a weakness. The purpose of, you know, our sort of collaboration here is really not, today especially, is really just to orientate ourselves, to talk about what this is, what this group is, what purpose it serves, you know, and to identify some of the issues we would be talking about later. Not necessarily to get into those issues today, but just to start talking about identifying those issues and identifying what role this committee would have in addressing. Yeah, that's mostly it for me. I think that one or two other brief points off the bat here. I think it's also important to remember that there's no, I know everybody's kind of aware or partially aware of the study that was produced by DCED, which was actually requested by both municipalities, right? So both municipalities submitted a letter of intent to the state saying, you know, we would like to explore this. With regard to that study, one thing I want to emphasize in the beginning is that there's no necessarily obligation to adopt any of the results in the study. It is just what the state of Pennsylvania has proposed based on information that was shared with them. And, you know, that is probably one of our key and most critical goals, is understanding that study, understanding what information they were given, and, you know, sort of digesting that information and you know, moving forward, however this body chooses to move forward. So yeah, that's it for me.
Yeah, and in terms of the history of how we've all gotten here, well, I guess even taking a step back from that, both municipalities are part of the STAMP program, which is the Strategic Management Planning Program. And that we were actually identified by the state from that, based off of every year we have to submit numbers and submit reports and everything to the state. And the state has identified both of our municipalities as challenged. They don't really tell us what the criteria is. They don't tell us where we fall on the spectrum or whatever, but they just say, hey, these ones are particularly challenged for one reason or another. And they have a whole list of recommendations, that many of which make sense to implement. And one of those recommendations very generally is, hey, you have a good neighbor right next door, look to regionalize services if you can, and one of those services being that in both circumstances, both communities, the largest department, I would say, I think the one with the largest staff members too, same, in Wesleyville as well, is our police department. Or our police departments. So it makes sense to look there. In terms of police department regionalization in particular, I mean, the state says looking all across the state, there's been dozens of examples of this being implemented. I think, Gina, when we were at the conference down in June, I think there was one table in particular, we talked with people who said that they had regionalized. I think it was a borough with a township. Not so much like us because it was more of a larger rural township actually, but they ended up really liking it. There's promising examples of this having occurred elsewhere in the state. There's reason to believe that there might be promise in this being something we explore. Kind of the elected officials kind of have a responsibility to their residents to look into all options if there's options available. So that's what, we put in for that study. The study was just the first step. It was really just kind of a framework that the state puts together. In some ways, it's kind of cookie cutter, really. Looking at it, it's like, okay, I guess this could kind of be said for a lot of municipalities. But that's why it comes back to us now, and it's really on us locally to say, okay, thanks for the framework. Now let's build it out. What would it look like here if we would have it? What are the options that are available to us? And really, we want to, over the course of this steering committee, we want to get kind of granular and really dig into, okay, what if we went this way? Let's see where it would take us. Okay, now what if we do it this way instead? So ultimately, this is not a voting body. Nothing here is binding. Nothing will be, official really, except as we'll go through this, we'll ultimately have some recommendations brought to the public and to the municipal bodies. And probably several recommendations or several different variations that we'll bring to the municipalities. And then it's up to the individual municipal bodies to talk it out and to see if it makes sense.
Mhm.
Over the course here, again, this is just the steering committee. So we're kind of the individual members of the community that are tasked with really digging into this. And then ideally we start to build out a framework, we get a better picture of what this could look like. Then we would present that to the public. We'll talk more about this towards the end of the meeting, but probably scheduling public hearings and things like that, where we would have a full fleshed out presentation to the public. Then we would have hearings where we hear back from the public of what their thoughts are. We'll probably incorporate some of their thoughts, then have a final report. And that final report is then what we would provide to the municipalities. And then it's kind of in the municipal body's hands, both the township commission and the borough council. And then, it goes from there. So obviously this being the very first meeting, it's just kind of, we're going to get familiar. We're going to start to get a little bit of a plan of how we think we want to run this, and then we'll go from there. So.
Yeah. Marcus said something that I just want to emphasize too. He mentioned, sort of getting into the idea of us not being a voting body, being an advisory body. I do just want to reemphasize that, because I know a lot of you here are voting members of your respective council or commission. And so, I just want to make it clear that this that's not necessarily the role of this group. The role of this group is to determine the feasibility of this, the reality of it, to talk about the different permutations of it. Something else Marcus mentioned as well with public hearings. I know some things been tossed around with getting more surveys out. That can all be part of it, right? This is all part of this same conversation. So I don't know. I think probably the next thing is just to talk about, as we're talking, these standards of conduct. just getting right into them, with standards of conduct. We do ask everybody here, we understand, Marcus and I understand, as well as my conversations with a lot of you individually and a lot of community members, that this is kind of a hot topic issue, right? It is a sensitive issue. It is something that people are very passionate about. And so with that passion is going to come strong opinions, right? But we just ask that people in this group just remain respectful of one another. The goal is not to necessarily win arguments or attack people personally here. That's not something we want to see. We're looking for productive conversations. It is okay to challenge anything in the study. It is okay to challenge anything that is said here. We just ask that folks are doing it respectfully and not devolving into any kind of personal attack or personal affront. Because again, we understand this is a can be a charged topic. It has a lot to do for both of our municipalities in terms of budget items and employment. So it's a big deal. And so we just ask that everybody take it seriously and act accordingly.
If you weren't a little bit charged on the inside about this, I think I'd be concerned,
Yeah.
because this has to do with public safety of 7,500 people in our communities, and the results of this could be lasting one way or another, whatever it might go. So yeah, definitely we appreciate. I think the communities appreciate that we've all stepped up to think about this, and now we got to do it. And hopefully we can do it in a way that's productive. And certainly this is where all of the concerns that we have, or any thoughts that we have, any off the wall, well, what if this happened? What about this? This is the time to think about it. So.
Yeah, and just to continue on with the standards of conduct here, public representation and relations. What does that mean? What I'm talking about is representing this body. No one member of this body speaks for this group. Right, just the same way that no one council member, one commissioner speaks for the whole commission or whole council. There is no one member that is speaking for this group, and this body is not an independent voting body. So what we mean to say is, the discussions we have here are public. They are things that you are fully able to recount. Your own personal opinions are not necessarily what is represented by this group. Does that make sense? Because everyone's coming into this with different personal opinions. We ask that you don't represent those personal opinions as the opinion of the group as a whole. That there's a difference there, right?
Yeah.
You're certainly entitled to both, right? Nobody's saying you can't have an opinion, just asking that you don't have your opinion be the opinion of all of us.
Yeah. And there's many things that we're going to look into that will be, well, okay, could be this way, or it could be that way, or it could be this way. So that's a thing of, obviously the public, we want to be involved in all this, and moving forward, we'll have recorded meetings that are, posted, and we even get public here and everything. But, in general, yeah, no one member speaks for it. So to say, well, the steering committee is going to do it this way. Well, the steering committee is not doing it anyway. We have to look at all the ways. We got to really think it out, and then we present it to the public and to the municipal bodies and see where it goes.
Yeah. And then sort of last thing in the standards of conduct here is talking about fact finding and non-conclusory. So again, the purposes of these meetings, it's what we've already been talking about, are for listening, recording, and recommending, not deciding, right? Meaning what we talk about here, what conclusions we come to here are not actually, they are recommendations, right? They're not the deciding factor, right? So even if this body comes up with a very specific list of recommendations, right? We say this is what we believe our commissions and councils should do. It is up to those bodies to actually make that decision, right? So something important just to keep in mind as well. We are sort of fact finders. We are not issuing the final sort of conclusions here.
Yeah. So moving on a little bit to the next thing. In terms of the study that was requested, as I mentioned earlier, I mean, it was requested by both municipalities. The way that process looked like, for one, it was free. So there was no harm, no foul in it. It was actually their consultants. As I said, they've done these for dozens of municipalities. So when we were offered it, we said, yeah, why not? We'll see. They ended up sending quite a daunting survey packet where they asked all kind of questions, really granular, some of the questions. We did that as well as the administration in Lawrence Park at the time, filled out the survey, and that was put into the state, and then that's kind of the basis of their report. Now, this report is going to be the starting point for us. Kind of, as I said, it is a framework. Nothing is binding. They're not forcing us any particular way. We can do it really however we see fit. But since this is the starting framework, I think we will ask that everybody kind of get familiar with that study. I know myself, I looked at it 2 months ago or something, so I even have to go back and reread the whole thing. So
to that point, if you don't have one,
Yeah.
like I know, Jen might not have one,
Yeah.
for example, well, I'll get you one. I'll send it to you in an email. It's not a problem.
Yeah, we'll make sure everybody gets it. And if you want a printed copy, I'm sure either him or I would be happy to print it for you and have it, because it is, I shouldn't even say this, it's 70, is it hundreds?
Well, sorry, that was this 4 pages. Yeah, 4 pages.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit daunting, to say the least. But if you'd like it in a nice printed format, just ask us for it and we'd be happy to provide that. So as I said, that's the beginning point of this. I think that's really all to be said about the study at this time. If you could please take some time to go over that and then have that kind of ready in the back of your head for the next meetings and all the meetings going forward. So, and then, I mean, I guess, do you want to do this next section or do you
Sure.
go straight to they're kind of similar.
They are kind of similar. I mean, I'll just get into it. Again, just to talk about some of, some of the, where are we at here? Sorry.
You want to stick on the advantages and disadvantages?
Yeah, we'll stick there. Just talk about some of the advantages and disadvantages. This is what comes from that study again. This is again our starting point. What I'm about to talk about is hypothetical, right? This is what the state consultant thinks, could happen, right? Some of the advantages they mentioned, they are inclined to believe that a sort of a bigger consolidated department may lead to easier recruitment. It may lead to lower duplication of efforts. It may lead to budgetary savings, additional opportunities for grant funding, and it may serve as kind of a sales pitch to a wider community audience, right? And what we mean by that, just to get specific, is it was cited in that study that, perhaps a regional police department may be able to offer contractual services to other municipalities, other school districts, things like that. Again, these are all hypotheticals. The study is saying these are things that could happen, not things that, sort of will or are guaranteed in any way.
Yeah. The study also looked at, better recruitment, because it's a little bit of a larger, maybe more attractive department in that sense. We can offer potentially better compensation and whatnot. But also, there's strength in numbers. When you have a smaller department, one person gets sick, one person gets injured, you're kind of in a bind. That's a real hard thing to do, to struggle through. So if we have strength in numbers, it's just a little bit better that way. It takes more to really cripple a department or put severe stress on it. And an advantage is, well, the view on the ground. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, either the two of you, but in many ways, you're backing each other up, you're everything like that. So it's like, hey, seems like there is logic behind this. You already support one another separately. Why not, potentially together? So that would be the advantage, at least in the eyes of this statement.
Well, and to that point, let's talk about disadvantages. And again, the study did mention some. Talked about reduction of local control, right? Meaning that your local commissioners or your local council wouldn't necessarily have express control over this new hypothetical department, right? Fewer community non-police tasks, right? One of the major concerns cited is, both of our police departments participate in community activities. They may not have the ability to do it as at such a high level as maybe they're able to now. Risks of losing sort of your cultural identity, right? Anytime you're talking about regionalizing or combining services, there is the concern that we lose some of our sort of our identity as Westego or Lawrence Park respectively. And again, then there is the question of budget. The information in the study, may require additional evaluation and frankly, different permutations. The study itself, when you guys get into it, if you haven't already, shows you lots of different permutations and hypotheticals that are based on potential grant funding or based on, they even talk about, sort of cutting officers, right? This is in that study. Any of those things, again, these are our starting points for conversation. They are not, a playbook or a rule book that we're necessarily having to follow. So I think it is, again, just important to reemphasize that all the things we're talking about right now are recommendations, not requirements, right?
And I think Spencer and I could say, as administrators who deal with the budget of our municipality, the budget that was laid out in there is not detailed enough, not even close. I mean, there's some of it where, again, the state was great with this. This is a good starting point, but it was like, yeah, that should be enough for insurance. Yeah, I don't know about that. We're in the course of this, we are going to have to get a little bit of harder figures put towards this, talk to insurance reps and say, okay, if we did it this way, what would it look like? Can we get a quote? All that stuff. So
yeah, and that's the other part of this. We don't have, again, the state's numbers are, a lot of that study is based on hypothetical. It's based on the information we provided. With all of that will need to necessarily be revisited during the course of these conversations. Because again, there's all kinds of different factors, right? You guys are in a contract, y'all are in a contract negotiation here, right? That changes things. The price of things like insurance goes up, so we don't actually know. We don't actually know at this point what it would cost, what the cost savings might be or could be. Those are things that this body has to determine, right? We have to decide, okay, is there actual cost savings potential here? What does that look like, right?
Going to get those numbers, or
Well, that's something that we're gonna have to do. We're gonna have to figure out how we're gonna do that. And so, if Marcus and I need to, place phone calls to get quotes, that's certainly an easy thing for us to do. But then even more than that, it's going to be looking at our individual budgets, and looking at what the actual cost.
in my thoughts, I think that's gonna be the number one thing.
Oh,
Probably,
no, it is. It definitely.
probably should start with the budget, because I think that's gonna be one of the things that's either gonna say yes or no. If it's gonna be one-sided, it's gonna cost us a lot. If it's gonna cost North Park a lot, I think that's gonna be the biggest discussion I think we're gonna have with the budget.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
We definitely will be.
Yeah.
That will be a big part of it. And I think it needs to be granular enough that a lot of the budget getting specific items will probably fall on Spencer and I.
Yeah.
And that way, but that's where, with the help of the committee, and we'll get to that here, where we're gonna start saying, what are those things that we need to think about? And that's where we'll kind of all here start spitballing, throwing out, well, can't forget about this, can't forget about this. And then as we do that, it'll get easier for him and I to know, okay, we need to get a quote for this.
right.
Okay, we get a quote for that.
Yeah, there are many things that in both of your departments that we don't even, like I would speak for myself when I say that there's, things like your timekeeping procedure, right? Like there are costs that we're not going to be aware of, just by looking at sort of high level budget analysis, right? And there's differences in how operations work. But again, those are things we can get into as we move down this road. And to that end, just
So for this next section here, and I have it on the screen here, so as we kind of shout stuff out, I'll go ahead and type it out, but as stated, this next section, we're thinking, again, many of us maybe haven't gotten a chance to look at the report thoroughly, or as I said, I need to look at it again. So we're not going to get too specific. We're not going to get too much into like discussion this moment, but it's more so what the 6 things you see up there were the sections that were within the report. And then if you all can kind of throw out, hey, an example would be, well, what are we going to do with vehicles? Like, how are we going to handle the vehicles? The inventories between the two, and how many do we need total? And okay, how would we badge it and whatever.
and then we'll put that live right now
Mhm.
today in the facilities and equipment category. So, again, Marcus just threw out one concern that he's aware of. There were concerns identified in the DCD study, but rather than do that, this is kind of an opportunity, if there's things on your minds, right? If there's things on your minds that fit in this category, or any of these categories, or maybe not in these categories, that you're concerned about or think we will need to discuss in the future. What would those things be? We already heard, the budget is going to be a primary concern, right? And so, that is its own separate line item.
It is a heading.
It is a heading for a reason, because we know that is going to be a primary, topic.
Are we gonna start, like, what's number one priority? Go
Well,
down.
and that's what we're gonna,
We could probably look at that, yeah.
yeah,
So let's first spitball a little bit, throw out, and kind of think of it like when I said the patrol vehicle arrangement, let's call it, like, maybe what are the questions that we're looking to answer from that? And if I could type that out too, like, how many do we currently have, what's the condition, how many would we need, all those kind of questions. So think of that. Is there anything anybody wants to start us off by shouting something out, throwing it at the wall and seeing what we figure we need from them?
Behind you.
Hour per shift. How many boots on the ground do we have now per shift?
Staff.
And will it be reduced?
so reduction in staffing. So
I think the first and foremost would be the number of officers we have total to begin with. And then you break it down from there to go to staffing levels per shift and everything else. That's a very complex thing that we're gonna be jumping into. It's not just like the first thing you need to decide is how many officers you're gonna have total, and you can go back down and break that down to how many you need per shift and how many hours per week. And
Yeah.
So I think the first thing would be how many officers. I think the 16 is the ideal.
Yeah.
How many of there are now in the two departments?
Yeah, that's a 16.
16.
Combined?
Yes, so that's including two school resource officers that we basically are functioning for Lawrence Park, big from our end, but we have 7 guys that maintain the street and we have 2 full-time that are in the school.
So I'm gonna say patrol arrangement, and then also, school officer arrangement, because we have to obviously consider that. And, school has,
We're not looking at cuts, which is a good thing, I think.
yeah,
I think if we start cutting the amount of officers, you're cutting service.
I understand,
Yeah.
I understand that. What about, now, question I was thinking here, writing a few things down. Potential retirements in the foreseeable. We're looking at this, I'm gonna say for at least
I'm gonna say
6 months to a
retirement
year,
schedule.
where there's any, let's present this out. Do we have anybody looking to go in that time period? So we're stable along that line.
Never good, no issues.
And one thing I'd like to emphasize, number one is officer safety. The public is something important, but we got, like you're talking, boots on the ground. We have to ensure that whatever the mix is, however we do this, that the officers are safe on the street.
We agree with that. So that's why I think the mandatory staffing level that we don't get below a certain amount.
Yeah,
if you want to put in, like a mandatory minimum.
Mandatory minimum staffing and mandatory minimum shift coverage.
Which nice too, because the two officers in the school will come out in the summertime.
Yeah, they're
Which helps out.
where typically where we have vacations, they come in and fill out. And then obviously holidays and whatnot, we have them filling in.
That's gonna bring back to my, just talking with the school board and what they asked me to bring up, eventually the cost that would go towards the school board once this happens, just because there was some interesting, numbers in your report.
Yeah, so DCD, I mean, just to call it what it was, so DCD's recommendation in their report was almost to double the current cost to the school board.
Yeah.
Now, again, that goes into when I was mentioning earlier that a lot of what this report says is hypothetical. We don't know. Yeah, it's definitely a question we will have to talk about and something that we will absolutely have to address is what is again feasible for those expenses.
Yeah. So I put under here, school district borne expenses. I don't know if that makes sense.
I mean, it makes sense. I wouldn't put it like that.
All right. Yeah, I'm spitballing. Yeah.
Y'all know.
Who's gonna do payroll?
Okay, so I would say, when they say operations here, I'm gonna specify this to say police operations, because obviously we're talking about staffing, we're talking about whatever. Here, I'm gonna add in a little thing for administration. And then say, okay, one piece of administration we have to think about is payroll handle
You also have to think about, clerking, like, if there is if there is one.
Clerk, well, I guess I should say clerk services.
Currently have a clerk.
I'm currently the clerk.
Yeah.
We were defined a couple of years ago and I took over responsibility for that job as well.
Yeah, but we would definitely need one main.
I
It's
think-
nice to have Lisa here that.
Yeah.
Can run pretty much all the operation, that aspect.
One thing that I want to think about is, obviously, we both have medical insurance for all the officers and everything. So, insurance handling, of all that. How does the billing, how does,
Yeah, who does the billing, who gets billed it, yeah.
yeah.
Mhm.
Pay scale.
And let me say.
Yeah, a wage.
Pension, is it you in the common pension?
No, it's still Act 600. My understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, basically our pension would freeze, your pension would freeze, and we start a new pension. I think
Yes.
that's the way it would happen.
Yeah,
It would be three.
But we would still need to consider price for pension and how that would be, so.
yeah.
Payroll, and pension handling.
Yep, so I'm gonna say payroll maintenance is getting the contributions there, and then there's reports annually or things like that. In terms of, I'm leaving an area for pension under the budget, because obviously that will be a budget consideration as well as administrative. So pension maintenance. Just to touch on that real quick, because that was a question that we had during the process with people from the state. And they said in all the other ones that they've seen, eventually the pensions do merge, or generally they do. In talking with, we actually currently have the same company as our actuarial firm, which is the company that does all the calculations and stuff. So the person who's actually no longer here anymore, or at that company anymore, but she did say, being familiar with both of ours for years, she said, you guys have very similar pensions already. So in her estimation, she's like, I've seen these before. I don't see the pension merging being a problem. The way that it would work is, as you said, yeah, it's kind of like you guys actually, your pension is fully funded at that 100% level. So you would kind of freeze there. They would have a calculation for us to, okay, yours needs to be brought up to 100% funding level, because we're at like 92 or 93 right now. And there would be an arrangement there for how much it would cost us to get up to that level. And then once we're both at 100% of our funding, they merge, they have the same benefits, everything, and we move forward. About that, there will be a separate, and I think the council, or sorry, let me mark down here, pension study initiation. Oh, geez. Whatever. So, whatever, you know what, we get it, okay. So it's not imitation, okay? So the pension study, as a committee, we would likely want to, sooner rather than later, move a recommendation to the municipal bodies to ask for a pension study to be completed. That's something that we don't do, and certainly Spencer and I aren't doing. That's where the actuarial firm does that. So they would look at that arrangement. Okay, how does that go? How does it go for Wesleyville? How much is it going to be to bring it up? What does it look like merged? All that stuff.
Yeah, it's kind of like that MMO process that you do every year, if if you're at all familiar with that, but essentially just, asking them what the cost would be, right? Yeah.
So, and that does take some time. So that is probably something that we want to begin sooner rather than later, actually. Again, that's not in our hands. That's just the pension going to be doing that. I think I was quoted from them with an estimate of it's like $3,000 or $3,500 to be split between the municipalities. And that money actually comes out of the pension, which ultimately is still going to be borne by the municipality. So it doesn't really matter how the money.
The municipalities just have to pay it.
Eventually, in the next MMO, we have to pay for. But that's something that we'll want to talk about for the pension, that there is a pension study that will be completed. Okay, anything else? Anybody want to spitball?
Pay scale?
Okay, so you mentioned pay scale, that would go under here. And I'm just gonna say contract arrangements in terms of, well, say first off, contract arrangements, in terms of their structure.
Yeah, I mean, you'd have to structure both of them.
Pay time off, all that.
Structure.
Yeah.
Paste.
That would still be subject to collective bargaining.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
They have the right to do arbitration.
Yep.
It'd be
Regional
negotiated.
police, do they still fall under civil service?
I didn't think so.
Regional police, they still fall under civil service.
They fall under the police commission.
Yeah, there's,
It could be up to, when they form a police commission. The
So,
police commission would be the civil service, would be all that when we do any.
So-
civil service will dictate the contracts anyways.
no, I'm talking as far as, like, say, right now, if there's an issue with, which we haven't had in a while, but with our grievance or anything like that, or arbitration or firing or anything like that, you go through a civil service.
My understanding is civil service would be defunct. It'd be a police pension board or police board. And obviously that would be something in the collective bargaining for the grievance processes. So that'd be spelled out in the contract. And it would go through the board instead of the civil service. It could no longer be.
So we would, like, borough code states, we have to have civil service, so we wouldn't have to have.
Yeah, according to the state, they said that of these regional departments, they're moving away from that. So, it wouldn't be required, I guess.
That's all the police commission, we got that presentation.
Yeah.
The police commission would take over for the civil service, will follow the police commission plan.
Yeah, now, I guess I should say this, that they did say you could establish it, that the police commission operates under the civil service rules, but none of these new police departments that are being formed are doing that arrangement. At least it sounds like from the state consultant's perspective that this is kind of a convoluted extra, so many steps that make it more difficult to operate a department. So they've moved away from that and they say, in this, the arrangement that they've done across the state is a police commission that would be in charge of that type of
So
stuff.
when you hire. Fall under the.
There's still a hiring arrangement, but it's not quite as strict or as structured as the civil service. So there's still some hiring process. And I mean, I guess, okay, governance,
I think that's something we need to look at.
How do you approach
We've had civil service and we've gotten, actually, Mr. Garvin over there has been there for 30 years. 32.
Yeah.
And honestly, it gives us structure and it gives us, like, they do all the work for us from that end, but it's been pretty effective, I think.
yeah. So as I said, I mean, I don't believe that there's a requirement for us to establish it one way or the other. I think we're not forced to have it, a civil service commission or a civil.
Keeps the politics.
Wasn't there some ruling from Union City that Erie County clamped down on civil service?
I'm not aware.
Where Jerry County, he was chief.
I could look into it.
Someone was hired, Union City.
Oh, that's. Yeah.
And then it went to a hearing, and when the judge found out he was not hired through civil service, but of course, they weren't a regional department. Based on your-
Yeah, it's Commonwealth first occurred, and they actually, all his arrests were dismissed. So yes, I think I'm aware of that one.
Starting to get blinded with it. So
Backing up, you were just saying not too long ago that we at some borough conference had met up with the one borough, one township that merged. Is there a way that we could, FaceTime whatever with them to talk with them about the projects and the plans that they went through in merging? You know what I mean?
Yeah, but they give us a blueprint.
I can,
They talk to us and say, this is what we did when we started this project. This is the things that we looked at. These are the places that we went to help us get this far.
I can kind of actually speak to that a little bit. So one of the things that happened, if you guys remember back a little ways, is there was a letters of intent sent to continue having state assistance with this. And one of the things that the state, actually, I just talked to the woman from the state about this, was setting up things exactly like that. So they offered to actually physically come to these meetings, or to do things like, a Zoom or a Teams call where they discuss, issues and try to answer questions just like that. Whether you get it from a municipality that underwent it, or, from an additional state consultant, but that either one of those things would actually be covered under those, letters of intent. And again, there's no cost for that to either.
It's all free for us. Now that already, the municipal bodies have already, didn't just throw the mission on all of our hands. They did actually move forward with that letter of intent. So the state will be providing us a consultant. From what I've heard, that consultant can help us as much or as little as we'd like. We can really delegate a lot to them, ask a lot of them. And they'll either, as you said, be here in person or away. But that's the consultants. Now that's the consultants, but also they did specifically mention actually talking directly with other municipalities.
And I feel like that would be a real true to life. These are the things that we did. These are the things that happened when we were working on this. These are the things that we stumbled over. These are the things that went really well.
Mhm.
You know, so that we can get an idea of, okay, this is something that's gonna be a problem for us too.
So I did mark down here, peer discussions with, other regional departments, about their process, what they liked, didn't like. I'll kind of make note here that this is kind of a ASAP type thing, because then that could guide our discussion sooner rather than later. Okay, good suggestion there. Anything else at all? Keep spitballing, this is great. Although the personnel and HR kind of fall under some of this, but.
That's all right. Okay, so just to move a little bit here, under, let's see, do we have? That's little section.
Are we sure we want to move on? Do we really?
Yeah, I was gonna say, I don't know. I
Does anybody-
I was
okay.
feeling alone.
If you,
For the community relations, I'd like to know how many officers are in, at any given time, in both areas, and then how would that look afterwards?
Right, yeah.
so I'll put that actually under the police operations.
That would fall under, I think, mandatory minimum staffing level,
Yeah.
shift coverage.
I know it did put on in the plan, it did talk about call volumes and stuff like that, but that might be kind of what you're getting at as well. Like,
Yeah.
how many calls are actually put out on a daily basis?
Well, and how many even people are, because I don't know how many we have running in Lawrence Park at any given time, but
It would vary based on our RMS system, which is our report management system. I can go in there and see where I'm in influx of calls. Typically, we even have more calls on between like 8 PM and 4 AM. Typically on weekends and Thursday, Friday, Saturday, type thing. So you're gonna staff more with that.
Yeah.
And then during the day, you're gonna have more calls between like noon and like say 6. So we staff accordingly. So we'll have more people on, I call swing shifts. We have day swing shift, we have night swing shift. So we'll throw an extra person on the days that we have an overage of calls. So it fluctuates. Like on Sunday, typically, I think in both municipalities, you're gonna have less calls in the evening than Sunday, as opposed to like a Friday evening.
everybody goes home to get ready for the week.
Yeah. So it all depends on its always.
Yeah,
Well,
and something I did
yeah,
want,
and response times, I'm sorry.
Oh,
Was that
no.
what you mentioned too, Spencer?
No,
no
I didn't.
totals, response times, I think that's
I
good.
remember one time I had to call from my neighbor's small fire and, I know this was fire station, but also the cops. I just happened to time it. And I think someone showed up from both fire and police in 1 minute and 27 seconds. I was like, this is awesome.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, and nobody,
Yeah,
Well,
that
it
is true.
wasn't Joe first, actually. It was these guys. They showed up with a fire extinguisher.
Yeah. Okay, well, that's valid, so we marked down here, call totals and like response times, and then also shift coverage and types and whatnot. Do you have anything more to say about that, or, I did want to make one comment, when his name was Chief Kirschner, is the police consultant that was doing this, that helped put together this plan. He was a little bit sensitive, at the end, there was there's a full report or he had a presentation, I guess. It was in the presentation, he got kind of broken down into some of the shift stuff and how much coverage and whatever. And then on the public report, he kind of watered it down a little bit. His thinking was, do we really want to tell the public? This is when there's the least police coverage and when the response time is the worst. And so he was a little bit hesitant about that. So that's something we'll want to think about. Yeah. Some of it will be maybe in how to, but not,
Yeah.
Yeah, go on dive too deep.
Yeah, there's a way to do it, yeah.
No,
So you're saying Sunday mornings? That's when I do crime. That's the best time. Yeah.
All right. That was a good thought about the response time and stuff.
I think if we, if this does happen, I think the overall operational efficiency is gonna improve. Without a doubt.
You said improve?
As long as you have.
Yeah.
Amount
The staff, if you have everything, it's going there overall.
If they cut it to like 7 guys, then there's no way. you can have-
Right.
Oh,
Right.
No,
That would be the
I
most,
gotta buy more guns.
yeah.
As long as we have, full staff and everything goes, I think the overall efficiency of the operation is gonna improve without a doubt.
I am just writing down here as well. The only thing we had in the facilities is about the cars. Obviously, we have stations too. So, what are the station layouts currently and what do the stations look like? Some of this was already detailed in the plan where they said
Take the cars over?
You would.
that would be one thing.
Yeah, that's a cost. I mean, again, that's a cost that would need to be considered, right? Because you'd have to decide how many cars, which cars, what arrangement of cars, and then getting them rebadged in whatever way this, the individual bodies or the new police commission would decide, right? I mean, that would be part of it.
We've gravitated towards silver, is the BR. I just got, we have 1 silver in operation, we just got 2 more cars. The black one's gonna be an unmarked, and we have the silver one's to be marked.
Yeah.
But
Which I have to say, I kind of like the silver. No offense. But you would,
Prices.
yeah, yeah.
we
But
got
it
ours
doesn't-
in grant, so.
Yeah,
Well, we did too, but it's.
yeah. No, and the colors.
Something like that isn't that bad, because you can
Have a
vinyl skin them for a couple of.
Yeah.
Well, and we could really, even if we needed to, just keep the cars as they are, except put the regional signs on the side of them, whatever we're gonna name the police. department. We know this.
Nutrition.
And then when we retire one car, we could get whatever color we choose.
Mhm.
If you want the silver, we can have the silver.
Yeah.
State police are doing that right now. State police are going back to white, grocery getters, but, so there's a mix right now.
I don't think it matters what the color, but at this point.
Yeah.
I will say one promising thing is, like in terms of badges and signage and one-time expenses like that, that's actually pretty like promising to get grants for. In particular, ECRA has a grant that's like up to 15, or might even be 25,000, might even be more than that. I think. For specifically multi-municipal collaboration type things. And this is a shoe-in for it, So if we get to a point where it's like, hey, this looks promising and we would ultimately recommend that, then we could also say, we recommend you submit a grant as soon as possible for,
You and I.
yeah, it would be us.
Yeah.
doing that, yeah. It would be us doing it, but ultimately, we recommend the municipalities together jointly go in for a grant. And all that, we will probably already have had quotes that we've figured for badges, signage on the buildings, and those are the kind of things we need to think about. But if we have a tally that's like, all right, it'll be $20,000 of one-time expenses to make us one, we can probably get a grant for that.
Or 50 or 75
Yeah,
or
whatever.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Okay, let's see. Just, what section?
I mentioned in the station layout, they put the badges on there. Other than that, we're kind of just spitballing back and forth. In terms of community relations, is there anything?
Anything specific? So, we are gonna talk a little bit more in literally just a minute about some community relation things. I know that the one thing I've heard just from people, in the community is, the loss of the risk, the big fear is the loss of, sort of the, individual service. I don't know how you want to say that, right? The idea that, because we have small community oriented departments, they're able to respond to calls that, for example, when I lived in the city of Erie, if I called about somebody shooting illegal fireworks, no one ever came ever. That there's no question, a police officer is not coming to my house for that. Never happened once. Just I had to deal with it, right? We both understand that in West Seaboard Morris Park, it's very different, right? And so the big concern that I've heard from few folks is that. And so, I think that that's worth further discussion, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't, again, but for community relations, that's really the only major concern that I have heard. Just, I don't know, out and about is the best way I can put it. Are we going to be able to ensure that somebody's showing up? We get,
I think, being that we're small rural, small township, we still have, which is plays good for us. We have those calls where people call us. I know you guys get for little things. Oh, there's a bat in my house. Where you wouldn't get that service, but we go and we help. Take that. We've got calls for, just like we had 2 weeks ago, the hot water tank was, something's wrong with our tank. I went over there, shut the water off.
Oh,
You know what I mean? But you get that
but you were
service.
available to do it.
Yeah, sure. You get that service in these small groups, small townships that we have, but you, no way, like you said, you're gonna get it anywhere else.
Yeah.
So that,
We're very spoiled in that way.
Yeah.
Thankful for that.
Yeah, and I was gonna say that we have that feeling both in Lawrence Park and Wesleyville, that both communities love their department.
yeah.
So there's kind
I
of,
think most people do. And I can speak personally, I moved to Lawrence Park because of the small community and the safety, and I have, I don't park at when we need to.
Yeah, so I think that's, when it comes to that, that's just a service that you get for being,
yeah,
it's all.
yeah.
I'd
Which,
like to add on the community relations. My thing is, we have school resource officer program. We have the longest standing school resource officer program in your county. It's 25 years running. It started in 2000. I was school resource officer. I want a commitment that we can continue that program, because when I was talking to the gentleman from DCD, the police liaison, he was adamantly against us being involved with the school resource officer, and we should just continue it and let them hire their own. I disagree with that, because there's so much benefit for community relations for the school resource officer program. I'd like to make sure that we sustain that.
Yeah.
And that's good.
Yeah.
yeah,
I'd say it's 100%.
Yeah.
You have, like you said, let's go back to service to the community. You have the officers in there. Kids, parents know these
They
officers.
know, yeah.
You have other people come in, they're not gonna know.
And they respect that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They don't hear that.
Service.
Well, it's even like, if I have a small, for those of you who don't know, I own a licensed daycare in Lawrence Park. And if my kids and I are outside crossing the road or in the park, these guys always stop to say hi. So the kids get to know who they are. We can talk about how really cool police officers are, and they're not, coming to get you if you didn't do anything bad, and I love that. And the same thing with our elementary, and, they know them. So if these guys show up and there's a crisis going on, my son Glenn has been going at the here since he was like 4 years old. He's like, oh, I know that dude,
I mean, I'm going to speak personally here to a family. We had a school crisis, a family crisis last year.
Yeah.
And the officer on duty that showed up was Ernest. So he was able to take care of that
Yeah.
little boy in the worst moment of his life.
Right.
And if Officer Lock wasn't there, I mean, it could have been,
Oh, and
it was horrible and it could have been even.
You have to keep that in-house, that service.
yeah, that's fair to do. Yeah.
Sit down.
no,
Oh, it's just secretary and Evan Lewis is at the high school.
all right.
One other thing about community relations, I know this is definitely getting ahead, but let's just say, okay, that we would regionalize. I think everybody here in the borough would like National Night Out, some presence here. You know what I mean? In terms of a community relations, I think, I know
We could
a
do it.
lot of residents and members of our council too are concerned with Wesleyville doesn't have our library locally, doesn't have our high school or elementary school and all that stuff. So there is a certain, because there's so much love for the police that we have, there is a fear that, oh no, are we transitioning into something where we're certainly, as we already talked about, losing local? But one example of that is a national night out. Do I have to go to the other community to meet my officers for a fun evening? So that, just throwing out there to something.
You could-
Community events.
I don't want to get too far ahead of myself either, but but something like that, it's like well, okay. I'm not even gonna get into it.
There's so many options that we could do.
Yeah.
We could have
You-
1 year.
Yep, you could switch it every year. You could do, yeah,
We did that not too long ago. We had
yeah.
kind of
Well, the problem with us down in Lawrence Park is we have a lot of kids that walk down there.
Right.
And we don't have safe ways to get down there anymore. So that's an issue. Plus, there's no, do their parents come with them? Not all of the kids have their parents that come with them to things like that. So walking down to Lawrence Park is just not safe.
Yeah.
It's not safe.
Yeah.
And I just want to point out that when we talk about the community things, Lawrence Park, with National Night Out and some other things, our Parks and Recs puts that stuff on, you know, so it's not exactly, it's not that we're not doing them over here. It's just it's Parks and Recs that does the dances and.
It'd have to be a bigger conversation. I mean,
Right.
And just for that, I think we did a national night out just last month,
Right.
just like Lawrence Park.
We did it for a couple hours.
Yeah, we're getting ahead of ourselves.
Oh,
Yeah.
But I just wanted to, in terms of community relations.
The most logical solution for that is like we did this year. We did ours from 4 to 6. You guys did yours from 6 to 8. So there's a lot of different things.
Yeah.
Like that's so far down the road.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of things that we could do.
Yeah.
We're committed to community service and community outreach. I know both of us are. That's something that we could easily figure out in minutes. It's not.
Yeah, and to that point, I think we're actually getting into, so like number 6 on here, I'm gonna kind of skip over it because we're doing it right now. You know,
Number 7 on my screen.
Oh, 7. sorry. Yeah, public concerns and communication. Well, you know, identification of public questions and concerns, that's what we've been doing, right? We're talking about that fear of losing the local service, you know, to some degree. That is something that people have mentioned, right? That is a fear. I mean, it's a very valid thing to say the loss of municipal control, right? Because our departments are, you know, anywhere from 40 to 50% of the budget, they are by their very nature a big deal for our commissioners and for our council, right? Well, if we were to go through with something like this, that big chunk would be removed from your direct control and be given to a new governing body, right? So, you know, that is something to, again, keep in mind, something we're going to need to talk about. We've already all mentioned here the concerns, but again, I'm just talking about public concerns about staffing cuts, you know, that has been raised, even though it wasn't necessarily recommended by the study. That is something that I'm sure everybody has heard a lot about, right? So that is something that this body will have to address. And then there's a perception, what's going to be the tax burden, right? That is something else that I've heard. Okay, well, what happens? Is this going to cost more? Is it going to cost less? What is it going to cost, right? And that goes into that budget talk. It goes into, again, but again, the point of this section, at least for me, was just to identify what have I heard members of the public express already as their concerns. What are our issues, right? And that's what that section is for. Is there any other ones? That's my list. Right? Anything else people have heard that they're like?
We add in there who governs the police.
There's a governance section,
Yeah.
and
I'm just saying.
In particular, as a
question,
member of
that's
the
gonna
public.
yeah, who governs?
Right.
Yeah, great.
Because, you know, we're gonna say, well, who's in charge, who hires, who, you know, where's.
Right.
You know.
Yeah.
Is one municipality gonna feel slighted if we say, you know, this one over here governs it? versus
Sure.
this one?
Yeah, and that's exactly the kind of thing, like, this section, we were kind of thinking, this will be like the frequently asked questions at the end almost. Like, these are the questions that we will most frequently hear our residents bring to our attention, either in a positive light or likely more in a negative light, in fear, you know, so.
Right.
So anything else up there?
What about the city line? Is the city going to start creeping into our territory if they know, you know,
What do you mean?
like Franklin Avenue, where we border the city? Do we think their crime is going to trickle our way?
Or yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. We get the same level, but we get the same types of crime that the city does. We just get on a smaller level. And I think because we both have small departments and we're very aggressive, proactive, I should say, not aggressive. We kind of squash a lot of that and push it out of the way. But we do have the same types of crimes that the city does. We just have them on a smaller level. And I think we address them
We know when they come in,
Yeah.
in the city.
And I just worry that line might.
They've got to go back to, at least in the Lawrence Park area, you know what I mean, because that's like a huge.
Yeah, that is geographically a big bump.
It's a big old barrier.
Yeah.
This isn't something that we can answer, but I've heard a lot of constituents in Wesleyville saying, why not Harbor Creek? Why can't we?
Mm.
Good question.
And I guess let me address that, or do you have something to say?
Yeah, you can address what I'm saying, but that's what I'm hearing, you know, why not Harbor Creek? Why not enlarge this to even a broader spectrum? Harbor Creek, Northeast, and not that. I tell everybody at that point when they're saying this is not a given that, and this is something that two communities are looking at. If later on somebody else is interested, then we can look at that as well, but right now, this is what we have.
I think the
But you
blunt,
can address it more.
I think the blunt answer to that, Harbor Creek doesn't pay right now, they get for free.
Right.
So unless there's legislation forcing them to do it with the residency safe trooper bill, they're not gonna do it. They're not gonna go pay money when they don't have to.
Like, what does PST say they cost for Maryland? Is that a population?
Well, it's not a really big bump.
Yeah,
They don't go.
Unless you have a certain type of government.
And they have enough, the larger municipalities have enough clouds that they get it dismissed every time. It goes nowhere. So until that bill goes through, which last time was $147 per resident, they have 17,900 residents, would have been like $2.4 or $5 million. They're never gonna be able to sustain that, so then they would come to us. But until that bill goes through, they're never gonna come to the table, period.
Unless they get overwhelmed with complaints when they leave.
Yeah, and
that's about it.
And
That's about the only real sales pitch.
Yeah, the broader context is ultimately, in the case of Lawrence Park, we're required to have a police department.
Yeah.
In the
First class
case of
central code.
municipalities, we don't technically need to have one, but we've chosen to have one, and both municipalities have chosen to have one for over 100 years, well liked by the community. We're committed to our departments. Harbor Creek has never had a department, is not required to have a department. There's no threshold where they will be required unless if they
Change their
Face-
government.
well, or that, or if they would face so much crime that they would get backlash from the community saying, we need this. Now, one big change, not only have they been coasting off of, the state police, but just so happens the state police is located in Lawrence Park. The way up to the highway is Naval and Station Road, which arguably is probably their, Naval and then Station is like one of their most heavily trafficked areas. Naval, that intersection right there, Naval and Buffalo, I think I've seen in their comprehensive plan, it is their most busy intersection. So they just so happen to have a constant stream of police cars heading down here. They are moving to Summit, within the next, I don't know when that is.
First quarter of next year.
Yeah,
First quarter,
fall next year.
So,
And I think that's a big,
yes,
something huge we need
Yes.
to consider is the timing here.
yes,
If we're losing one police force.
Yeah.
Losing a second one within days, months, years could be detrimental to everybody.
well, when you say losing police force, what do you mean by that?
When, hey, open here, or hey, WPD's not hearing, like, just the perception of, hey, two.
Well, the
police are
perception.
Now,
Mhm.
Yeah.
are they gonna start trickling over? from
Yeah.
anything?
Yeah, no, I mean, the hope would be, especially if we keep the strength, it would be strength in numbers, so merging two into one. And one is not equal in that case, but in terms of certainly from Harbor Creek's perspective. Wesleyville and Lawrence Park Police Departments are not really responsible for the calls out there right now, except in the event that, you needed to, but, yeah, the state police being out in Summit, there's probably. I would think within the next 5 years, they might seriously start to say, we were thinking we might let some police. Now, they are so far behind us when it comes to a commitment to having a police force. We've done this for 100 years. We've already accepted that this is gonna be something in our budget every single year.
Harbor Creek would.
The Harbor Creek has,
Yeah.
as you said, legally, they don't have to. There's sometimes our bills that come forward that might force them. If that would happen, then they legally would be forced to have something or pay something, and then they might look to us. But it might also organically happen in 5 years. If the state police are out and then all of a sudden there's a big, something happens out there, something, the Northwest Bank gets robbed or something, and it's like, wow, it took 15 minutes for the people to get here, we need our own police. Then they'll start looking, but theoretically, the reason why we wouldn't bring Harbor Creek now, as I'm stating, is we're equal partners coming to this. They would be a third at the table that's not committed, that doesn't know what it costs. They don't know. So if we would, let's assume we would regionalize, and then let's say in 5 years that they do want to potentially join on board with us, we would say, okay, we can loop you in. And then at that time, actually, the way the state does it, the state has said they will continue to do these studies and they're happy to do these studies. So let's say in 5 years, we would be regionalized, we're liking it. Harbor Creek says, hey, we'd like to get on board. Then we'd say, well, Harbor Creek, there's going to be a state study that analyzes your population, your potential call volume, geographic location, and then we'll give you a number, or a framework to start of how much you might have to cough up to be a part of this. And then we'll go.
You have to double. I mean, it's a whole thing.
Yeah, you know, I mean,
You know,
for us,
like-
it would be significant geographically. I mean,
Yeah.
so even, we don't even know if we would.
And then
really
you'd have
want
to
that.
get space. No, that's the other question. You'd have to get space out there. Some, you know what I mean? It's a whole different.
But anyway, I mean, that, I know,
Yeah.
I
When
don't think
we-
we see that in our lifetime.
Yeah, that's a whole different ballgame.
but when we put out about it, I know there were comments asking, hey, Harbor Creek should look at this, or why isn't Harbor Creek involved? That's not up to us. And also right now, not that we're trying to exclude anybody, but it's gonna be hard enough for us to all work together and make it make sense for us right now.
They were asked, they said no. Yeah.
Well, and I'll make one other point to that discussion, you know, because that plays into a larger conversation that happens a lot, you know, the why not Harbor Creek narrative. Wesleyville and Lawrence Park are geographically very similar. We're both grid pattern, small communities with the same school district. Harbor Creek is not really part of that conversation. So I just think it's important to get that on the table. Yes, they have a bucket of tax revenue coming in right now. Good for them. That's great. But the communities are very different. So when we're talking about this or really anything else, it's just important to keep in mind that cooperating with Wesleyville or, you know, with Lawrence Park is because we are vastly more similar than either of us are to Harbor Creek. That's just important to keep in mind. You know, I'm not saying I wouldn't collaborate with Harbor Creek on anything, because I would, but they're just in a very different situation than we are entirely, you know.
Answer that question, if you would send an invitation, they're gonna say no.
Yeah, exactly. Right now, they would say no anyway, so that's a later problem if it ever would come.
Yeah.
Maybe it doesn't come in. on the-
Point at that banner on the wall. We haven't raised taxes in
Yeah.
Yeah.
No raise taxes.
I think at this point, in the next 5 to 10 years, there's a 0% chance they come to the table unless they're forced.
Yeah.
In my
We
way.
tried it before.
Yeah.
I've
So,
been for 15 years and we've approached and they threw out a number to us for us to do police over there. And honestly, it was absurd. Like, I couldn't do, it was like a fraction of our budget.
They have no idea what it costs.
Yeah, no idea.
They have no idea what it
They
costs.
wanted us to be, just, you know, reactionary. If they call us, you know, we'll go out, not to patrol, and there's no possible way we could have done it for even remotely what they were saying. Like,
Yeah.
it just, it couldn't happen.
Well, good point about Harbor Creek, because that is something that
Yep.
I've heard questions
Yeah,
about.
people do ask that question.
Is there anything else like that that we can foresee the public asking or concern that we've heard or might have? In,
No, headquarters. I just thought of that.
okay,
Well, sure, gonna be one, are we gonna have, you know, two
So-
buildings, we're gonna consolidate in one, we're gonna build a new building.
so I put that under the facilities in terms of the station layouts. I think that would kind of cover that. Now, the public concern would be, where are our stations? And where do we interact with our police?
Honestly, though, given the two, police departments,
I don't think that has to be said even yet. 'Cause looking at the study, yeah, there's no way.
there's no possible way that we could have the police department run out of Westerville Police Department. Honestly, I don't think it's adequate enough for what they need at this point, let alone you throw in another 9 guys.
Yeah. I think that's, I can, just knowing that, I think we can all agree. I mean, if we looked at the numbers actually of the square footage of the two, we wouldn't be able to accommodate here for the full department. But that, I will state right out the gate, that I think our council and certainly our community members cannot lose a station here. And that, was something, talking with Chief Kirshner, he said, that's really up to you guys to figure out. If there is really a hard stop on that, then that's something that the communities feel, and that's something that the steering committee will think about. So I think going into this, we only have so many options when it comes to stations, and I don't think building one anytime soon makes any sense.
Yeah.
I mean, unless if we get a big grant or whatever. So it's like, we got two
Huge
stations, we're gonna make one of them work as the headquarters, and probably likely one of them as like a secondary satellite type. So, and that wouldn't be
Well,
too.
one thing with Westerville, if we have a clerk to go to the main building, so then there's some more room there, so you could gain a little more, because I've been in there a lot of times, bring the squad down there, change a little bench.
Yeah, exactly. We don't have a holding cell here.
I mean, we had one little bit of a discussion prior, that we leave this building, leave the phone out there. A lot of the Westerville people can't get down to the Lawrence Park, so basically what they would do is pick that phone up,
Yeah,
and then the police could come up here, they'd still have that office open, and that would still give privacy for them to go back into that office.
And
no
talk.
matter what. No matter what, you still have officers assigned to Wesleyville solely, you have people assigned to Lawrence Park solely, you have, the supervisor rotating. So you're always gonna have somebody up here regardless.
Yeah,
And having a place for them to go, stop in, and
Yeah.
obviously would be,
Yeah.
Just have like a little substation up there.
yeah,
If they're up there, they gotta use bathroom or something like that.
Well, that's what it's called, substation.
You know.
Substation, that's the word you're looking for.
If something comes up and somebody comes up, picks up the phone, we can bring him into the office there.
Yeah.
Do what we have to do.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, so that's the stations. Any other concerns at this moment? Hearing none right now, I'll move to the next point here will be, so outline the plan for our next hearings and whatnot. So I will say, I think Spencer and I here can take this, we dropped the ball a little bit. That we didn't get a chance to put out on Facebook and publicly advertise saying that we'll be having this. I did check with our solicitor before this meeting that this was, right now, we're not deciding on anything. We didn't even really discuss all that much. Obviously, we're not discussing details. We're just throwing stuff out. So that was okay, in his eyes. Moving ahead, we will make sure that it is publicly advertised in the newspaper, that it is, published on Facebook. We'd encourage the public to come here. Now, my questions to you all will, I guess, be for first thing, during these meetings, during our actual steering committee meetings, do we want to have a public comment period or whatnot? I mean, the one hesitation I'll just say about the public comment period is, what are they commenting on yet?
Yeah,
Like,
we haven't produced anything.
we haven't produced anything, we haven't presented anything, we're literally just at a stage where we're talking about it. So, I mean,
I do believe we have to, like, session.
I believe this is a different, it's not a public meeting in the sense like our council. or-
We're not voting
Yeah,
on
we're
anything,
not-
so it
We're
doesn't.
not making any binding decisions here, we're not doing anything like that, so.
if you allow the public to speak, and we're not even really moving forward yet.
Yeah.
Mhm.
All it's gonna do is derail what
Yeah.
we're trying to do.
Yeah.
And prolong the meetings and kind of sidetrack us from
Uh-huh.
the objective.
I would agree, and I would say that we reserve that for public hearings that are specifically for that purpose, right? That's for my 2 cents. I just think that, I agree. I think that, because this is not a voting body, we don't have to have a public comment period at each one of these meetings. The public are welcome to attend, but because we don't, because those public comment periods should quickly derail any kind of progress we are making. And because we will have to have public hearings, and surveys and all kinds of other stuff, that is the time when anybody from either municipality or anywhere else can come, ask questions or talk or voice their opinion on this, because we do want to include the public. We want to be as open and as transparent as possible. But at the same time, this group has to actually be able to accomplish things.
And like you said before, we have sensitive things that we don't really.
Yeah.
Right, that's another part of this as well.
Now, if this is good with you all, I still think it might be good to provide a little bit of a pressure relief valve for members of the public who really want to get their comments out. So instead of coming in here and taking our time for that, we'll invite them in to listen and whatnot, and then maybe, we can set up like a suggestion box, kind of written comments and or an online form that like, we would get notified about it. And maybe at the next meeting, we can say, hey, we had 2 comments that said this and this, the gist of it. So it would keep it quick, and they still have an opportunity to give their comment now, so we could consider it while we're still drafting. But then, so written public comments.
Yeah.
In physical, and or digital. And then in terms of, so that's the written comments.
Mhm.
As I stated earlier, I think in terms of a sequence of steps here, we'll, meet and next thing here, we'll talk about the next meeting, but we would meet so often until we get to a point where we're kind of have a draft report ready. And I think
Something
we
to
would,
share.
share the draft, report with the public and municipalities. And then, then we would have, at least probably 2 or so, dedicated public hearings. Where they would review the draft plan, and then we would, finalize the plan,
Finally.
incorporating, it's weird to not look at it. Incorporating public comments received. And then, once the report's finalized, we would, present that final report to municipalities. Does that sound like it makes sense to everybody? Okay, so we'll look to do that then, as a sequence. In terms of next meetings, does anybody want to throw out some times? I kind of like Thursdays. I don't know about you guys.
I don't.
You don't. It's all about time.
Hey, well, listen, you're throwing out what you like. I'm just gonna throw it out.
Let's hear it. When's your suggestion?
Well, I mean, I love a Wednesday.
The Wednesday, my concern with
Yeah, but
Wednesday is that the second and the fourth Wednesdays, we already meet in the borough.
Okay.
And then also for our council meetings, and then in particular, in the next couple months, we're gonna be doing our budget meetings.
Yeah.
Which we often do the first and or the third Wednesday of the month. So if we could stay away from Wednesdays by any chance. That might change.
It's
into the new
just
year.
me. I think it's just me. Like, it didn't, nobody else said
Well,
anything.
you said it's school, right?
What's that?
Is it school then?
Yeah.
Is there any possibility of having earlier?
Yeah, that would help me majorly.
What about everybody else? I would love a 5 o'clock.
I would also love 5 o'clock or even earlier than that.
5
I
o'clock.
don't get out of work till 5.
I'm here a few minutes in.
Or we could say 5:07.
5. You were far away, I don't know.
Yeah. Is it?
30th or Thursday.
I mean, I can even do 5:30. That would help me a ton.
Okay, so 5:30, let's say for now on Thursdays. Is that good for you guys? 5:30 on a Thursday?
How often?
And then that was gonna be my next question. I mean, that's something. Do we
I mean,
wanna,
you sort of have 3 options, right? With any kind of municipal meeting, you can do twice a month, you can do once a month, or you can do quarterly. That's pretty much how
I guess
most.
what is our next, what are we gonna be doing at the next meeting?
Yeah.
well, I guess I would think in the next, at least for a little bit, if this is good with you guys, just because I want to make sure we're building up momentum here, is if we could do a twice monthly meeting, maybe like a second and fourth Thursday or something like that. In these next couple meetings, if hopefully we would be able to review the report a little bit, we'll get a little bit more into the meat of this. At the next meeting, that will be public at that point. And then we would, probably we want to get, like, I don't know if we want to do like a chairperson just to make it official as a committee in that sense, or like if we wanted to start delegating and kind of saying, I mean, I think you guys are obviously going to be the ones mainly coming up with like getting together the shift information
Well,
and stuff. So we'll kind of delegate.
To back up a little, I mean, I think that whether we can do twice monthly or monthly kind of depends on these guys more. I mean, because it's you and I's job.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then everybody else here has their own different jobs, and then, so really whether we can do,
I guess what, we're gonna put what we're gonna be doing, what it's gonna dedicate as far as how many meetings, I mean, if you're gonna start on the budget first, that's gonna take a while to put together, so that,
Well, I'm
you
hesitant
might
to,
not be able to put a meeting together until you get that budget together.
well, I don't think we can't look at this. I know it would be nice to be able to say the first priority is the budget. Let's just focus on that. We really can't put together the
So
budget.
what is our next meeting gonna be about? That's what I'm getting at. I mean, I understand you wanna have a meeting, but what are we gonna what's our objective for the next meeting? That's what I'm trying to-
I think our objective for the next meeting should be talking to your person from the state.
Yeah.
That is coming in, inviting them to that meeting. So Thursday at 5:30, when can they come in?
Mhm, mhm.
And then set that meeting at that point, so that we could listen to that person and maybe some of the other communities that have done this. So that we can get a feel for, okay, we're on the right track,
Mhm.
let's go this way.
Okay.
Going back to what Paul said initially, I think the biggest hurdle would be the budget, because if the dollars don't make sense on either side, it's kind of.
Yeah.
That's, I think it's the
I
biggest
think
thing.
it's hard to, where do you start on a budget for a theoretical organization that has no structure yet? You know, so that's kind of where it's like, because if we're
They would
gonna,
have to put a schedule.
if there will be a
They
part
do
of the-
Scheduling, and that's where you get started with the budget, is
Yeah.
figuring out the scheduling, and then.
Yeah. so exactly, so we're already talking, it's not just the budget, it's gonna be the staffing.
We can't do anything with scheduling, that's gonna be them guys. They're
Yes.
gonna
But I think it also comes down, I mean, him and I could knock out a schedule. But it's gonna come down to contracts.
Yeah.
If you come in the budget, you're gonna have to salaries, that's where it's gonna lie.
And that, I mean, we can't, like, we don't wanna say the very first thing we must figure out entirely is the budget, because I don't think that's really possible. Because part of it does come down to, well, how many cars will we ultimately have? Because that's gonna change the cost of our auto insurance. How big of a facility will we ultimately have over there, and what's the estimated electric costs? You know, and then certainly the pay for people will be one of the primary things, but I mean,
I
where
think
do,
as far as cars, we probably could just keep the cars you got right now and stay with the numbers they have.
Yeah. That was just an example. In general, we're gonna have to do, the budget is gonna be a lot of work. It also does depend on variables that this committee is going to be kind of studying. So the budget is certainly one of the highest priorities, so it's gonna be the one that he and I will focus on the most. But there's other aspects that we have to think about and start.
To,
We could do like a worst case scenario and kind of fine tune from there, at least to get a ballpark where we're at. You know, basically go off, if Lawrence Park officers are paid the most, we'll go by, based off of that pay scale, we can go off. There's a lot of things in place that we can go off the worst case scenario and then play it out there and see where we stand and kind of narrow it down, or what we gotta do, fine tune it from there.
Yeah.
There's definitely some things we could do.
I mean, so, okay, just listening and hearing, so we want to, talking about the next meeting. I think the best place for us to start is for us to maybe get some more information. Maybe figure out some of the questions, we can talk, the DTD liaison is named Ann. We can talk to Ann, we can see who we can get to come speak. I get the desire to keep momentum moving, but also by the end of October, a month from now, at least for me, I'll have a lot more budget information. I hope, I should theoretically, and I think we will also give the state liaison more time to get people together. So maybe, I also completely understand and value and validate the idea that we want to keep things moving so we don't stall this thing out. But, there is some merit to the idea that we might have a more fruitful conversation if we give it a little bit more time. So I'm just.
That's
I like the idea as far as Gina, bring that lady aboard, you get somebody here that's already done it.
He agrees with you.
okay. So then I guess, so this is good. So the next meeting in terms of objectives there, Spencer and I will touch base with the state. Hopefully we can get a consultant at the next meeting who they will help guide us through that. I don't know
We
if
can try to get a municipality too.
would we want a municipality at the very next meeting? Or is
Why
that?
not? I don't know. My thought process is why not? Because we're gonna have a lot of the questions that these folks could answer, right? You don't have to, you know what I mean? But
Even if they come on Zoom and the PCED person is here, but a Zoom member from the municipality would be a great thing. I think.
Sure. Okay. So then we can get the consultant. We can try to get a municipality here for the next meeting. I think homework for you all, if you wouldn't mind getting very familiar with that report,
Mhm.
getting started on that, familiarizing.
Yeah,
Um,
if you've got,
Yes.
yeah, and if you've got issues with it, start highlighting them and writing them down and saying like, hey, this is no good. You know what I mean? Like, because that's exactly the kind of thing we need to be engaging with.
Yeah, and then, I mean, we talked about these sections on here of what we're gonna have to think about, not just for the fun of it, but also because, hey, ideally, we would be able to look at it next time and say, you know, kind of divvy up a little bit to people like, you know, hey, if I have a particular interest or experience in insurance, then I can kind of help to, you know, start on that side. And as we already talked about, I mean, there's some obviously, you know, in terms of police operations that we'll delegate to you guys. So I guess think about this. We'll share this via email to you all. You kind of look it over and then think over where you see yourself in this, where you think you can be most beneficial to the group. Then that's what we could talk more about at the next meeting. So
Yeah, no, I
state consultant, the municipality to talk more about next time, if you've reviewed the report. And then bring some of your initial thoughts at that moment and also review this and think about where you fit on the team.
and speaking of which, fitting on the team, I just want to, you know, I don't want to jump to the conclusion necessarily, but I do just want to say, you know, we have a lot of different types of experience here, right? I'm really happy that we have, you know, a school board member here and someone from the civil service here, and I'm, you know, as well as our elected officials, because it is going to be critical that you come to this both as just a citizen of these municipalities, but also as, you know, representational of whatever interests you had, right? You know, it's you know, it's good to hear that diversity of opinions, especially from folks in leadership positions. So, you know, I mean, to that end, I would say that, you know, when we get down to it, when we get to public comments, you know, it'll certainly be my intention to invite, you know, the superintendent, all the members of the school board, right, to get people from our different stakeholders, get them involved in understanding what we're talking about here, because they all have a vested interest in seeing what happens here. So, so that's just my thank you.
Well, in terms of meetings, I guess at this time, do we want to set one for next month then? And that'll give 4-ish weeks or so for us to get this stuff together, for you guys to all digest the report. So, I mean, if we wanted to do the first Thursday of the month, just to set ourselves as at least monthly.
Thursday in October, and are we saying 5:30?
I'm good with 5:30.
Okay.
And that would be Thursday, the 2nd. Again, we'll send this out in a follow-up email. Spencer will make sure I do that.
Yeah, I will. All right.
So 5:30 on the 2nd.
And we'll advertise this sucker.
Yeah, on the 2nd of October, 5:30. Do you want to do it down there in Lawrence Park? Do you think you'll have this set up for?
Yeah, we can make a little nice table set situation. We'll be ready to go.
Very good.
You're gonna bring the fancy camera?
I can bring
I'll
that.
tell you what, though, these are nice. These are nice, but we will have a setup.
So he showed you up on camera.
I know, right? Well, you know, I think he was jealous because I got a camera.
Yeah, he did get a camera before me. I'll give him that.
And then
In
he
the
was-
first meeting, he already had it recorded.
And then he was like, well, now I gotta get a camera. He went
I gotta get
he
it
did
set up.
he went for the cool. He got the
Depends who we
Yeah.
understand.
Yeah, we were waiting for a grant. This is grant
Has there
funded.
been any consideration for the name of the organization?
I think we're not even.
No, I would put that under community relations.
You know why?
Public identity.
One time we bought a fire truck and they went, we're going to a bigger pump. Okay, we're going to this instead of that. Okay. Color. 4.5 hours. Color.
Yeah.
4.5
We don't wanna do that. We don't want to do that.
Yeah.
It's just, it may be something like.
Yeah.
Lavender.
I like lavender. I like that.
It's nice.
So, all right, everybody. Is there anything in closing? Anything else?
I can say something. No offense to Spencer because he's just fairly new here, but
True
I
story.
would like to thank Marcus for all the work that he has put into the project and all the hardship that he's gone through trying to get this meeting together. I really appreciate that you got this all together for us.
I
Yeah.
appreciate that. The hard work is ahead. Or the hard work ahead.
Yeah.
Okay, we have our next meeting set on the 2nd, 5:30. If everybody's good, then we'll close this meeting and then, we'll all go about our evening.
Okay,
Yeah, thank you.
thank you so much.
All right.
Kindly.
Remote in.
Was he in?
I was here.
Good.
Hey, Paul Wilson, yeah. I can't hear the call.
You can't hear me?
Oh, I can't hear you. Do you have anything to say?
No, nothing. Thank you. Thanks for having a Zoom.
Again, it's very tricky with everybody in the room, so, but
Yeah, I'm sure they.
All right, cool. Thanks.
call me if you need anything.